me see here.
Or the stream's on. Hold on one sec.
That's weird. Okay, let me. You might have to press the. I mean, you're on a phone though. It shouldn't. It shouldn't affect that. Now let me try. Let me.
You might have to press the. I mean, you're on a phone though. It shouldn't. It shouldn't affect that. Now let me try. Let me. You might have to press the. I mean, you're on a phone though. It shouldn't. It shouldn't affect that. Now let me try. Let me. You might have to press the.
Let me jump back into the meeting, and then just stay here. Okay.
Let me jump back into the meeting.
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing this.
Okay. Let me jump back into the meeting. Yeah, I don't know why
this is insane. This is the crazier. It's on his side, not yours. Yeah, I think so. There's some kind of I don't know if my stream's on or maybe just call back in and try that method, because I have you on. They can't hear the feedback now because it was double looping and all that. So maybe just hang up and try to call back in. I don't know why. I haven't used the number in a while. I can send you the Google Hangout link as well. Let me unmute.
Number in a while.
Yeah, see, it's still doing that. Sound issues never happen on the kill stream. Yeah, I know. Oh my god. Let's see. This link as well. My audio. You're in. Okay. All right. Now let me check my settings too. Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it's on my end. No, wait. Let me see.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, see, it's definitely still doing it.
I don't think it's on my end.
Check your email. And you might could, or maybe try to call back in. I really don't understand why it would be doing that. It's definitely still doing it though. So I've had people call in before. Let's see. Okay. Okay, now let me see. Now there's two Peter Brimlows. Let me get rid of this. The phone one. Okay, now I think that might have fixed it. Now there's two Peter Brimlows. No, it's still reverberating. Can you hear me? No, I think that might have fixed it.
No.
It's still
Okay, let me
hear me. I think that might have fixed it. Do you see those 3 dots down at the bottom of the screen next to the red hang up button? If you click those 3 dots and then you hit the settings cog, you can change your speaker. I think it's your speaker or your microphone, and you might have to switch one of those because it's just reverbing my voice through your end, which I don't understand why it's doing that at all. This is a bit of a unique technical problem. But if you see those 3 dots and you hit the settings, and you might have to change your microphone and or your speaker to fix that. Let me see. Okay, I'm not hearing the reverb now. But I can't hear you either, but you might not be saying anything.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can all hear you now. Yes, it's fixed. It's fixed. Thank goodness. Okay. I've never had that particular issue, but I was worried we might not be able to get it fixed, but we did. So, yes, they can hear you now. How you doing, Mr. Brimlow?
Well, I'm just a boomer, Ethan, so I'm having some trouble getting this started. I'm sorry.
No. It's a common thing. Google Meet for some reason like changes people's settings sometimes, and I don't really understand why. But that does happen. And I'll pull up your Twitter here so they can see you on the screen. And yes, I saw Terran Rimlow up. I'm gonna turn him up. Just calm down. Stop yelling things at me through text. How you been, man, since the last time we talked?
Well, we're pretty battered, but everything, the family is fine, so that's what matters.
That's the most important thing for sure. And also, yeah, I will put a little bit of a gain raiser there on your voice. That's the most important thing for sure. And also, yeah, I will put a little bit of a gain. So now it's switched back on your voice. Now it's switched back. Now it's switched back to the. Okay, wait. I think it's stopped now. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I don't know why that happened, but first off, technical problems aside, which are common on this show, for some reason I'm cursed like that. But first off, just a brief introduction to who you are. I don't really think you need that much of one, but just tell the audience who you are, how you got started and all this, and how WeAre got started, etc.
Sure. The introduction, Ethan, nobody knows who I am. I'm a long-time financial journalist. I worked for Forbes and Fortune and the Wall Street Journal and so on. And most interesting from your point of view, National Review. And in '92, I wrote a cover story saying, America should rethink immigration. This great surge in immigration that was triggered by the 1965 Immigration Act. And in 1995, I published a book on that. And then in 1997-8, Bill Buckley fired us all from National Review because he didn't want us arguing with the Wall Street Journal and the congressional Republicans on immigration. And then I started in 1999, BeDare.com, which is a website dedicated to looking at the America's immigration disaster, this great flow of immigration that came in after the 1965 Act. And as a result of this, we've been attacked by the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, and she's basically bashing us to death. We spent nearly $1 million trying to protect our writers and our donors and our vendors from these very intrusive subpoenas. I mean, the fact is there's no law in this country now. These people in New York State, the judges and the regulators and so on, they're just tyrants, and they're in the process of destroying us.
Yeah, now, let me ask you, so I listened to a little bit of James Kirkpatrick when he talked to Aaron McIntyre, I think's the guy's name.
Right.
And I was wondering, and I just now caught up on this in the last couple months. I was wondering how she was able to, I was about to use a curse word, but mess with you guys in the first place. And he explained that it was because the LLC was originally set up in New York State. Now, is that accurate?
It's not an LLC, a private company. It's a 501c3, a charity.
Okay, charity. Right.
It was registered in New York State in 1999, in the era of George Pataki and the Republican control of New York, and nobody ever heard of lawfare. And this ability of the regulators and the prosecutors just impose enormous costs on their victims, regardless of what of the letter of the law is. I mean, we've not been charged with anything. We've just been hit with subpoenas and so on that costing us hundreds of thousands of dollars to comply with. So that's why she's able to do it, because we were registered in New York State. And once you're in New York State, you can't get out. You have to ask for permission to get out. And we were in the process of doing that when she hit us with these subpoenas. First of all, she attacked Facebook, which is really weird because Facebook had banned us in the process of trying to elect Joe Biden in 2020. Well, she demanded that all of our relationships with Facebook be turned over. We never raised much money through Facebook, so I'm not sure how significant that is. And we don't know what Facebook turned over because it won't tell us. And then she hit us with all these subpoenas, demanded all kinds of things. We've given like 40, 50,000 pages of documents, but of course it's not enough. You just make more and more demands.
Now, so again, so this is just a fishing expedition, right? There is no underlying charge, like.
Exactly. What happened was in 2019, Vita had a really great year. We raised a lot of money, and at that point, my wife Lydia, who's our publisher and chief operating officer, was completely fed up with the fact that we'd had like 10, 12 conferences cancelled. Since Trump was elected, we were not able to hold conferences because whenever you would book with the corporate hotel, the hotel would come under pressure from the left and it would cancel. So we just weren't able to have meetings. So her solution was to buy our own conference venue, and we bought the Berkeley Springs Castle in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, where we can have with a similar to remodeling and so on. We're able to hold conferences. For between 80 and 100 people. We call them boutique conferences. And we had one just 2 weekends ago, and it was a big success. People are starved. The Americans are starved to get together and discuss these issues, which are politically incorrect and they can't discuss in their workplace and so on. So that's worked very well. But apparently it distracted Letitia James' attention. So she started coming after us with these invasive and destructive subpoenas.
Now, I heard Kirkpatrick say that you had spent $800,000 in legal fees on this, and it may be more by now. This was a month or two ago. I think he did the interview, but how is it even possible to spend 800? Well, lawyers, I guess, but well,
that's it, Ethan. If you have lawyers who are charging $600 an hour, right. It mounts up very quickly. But it's a really shocking thing to have like 5 or 6 lawyers sitting around a table discussing the situation, all of them charging $500 an hour, and they'll say to you, well, there's no rule of law in this country. That is to say, we can't rely on the judges to defend us against a predatory prosecutor, and that's turned out to be the case. New York State judges are just completely under the thumb. Well, they do whatever she wants. They're completely politicized, as you can see with Trump. I mean, Trump should not be in court in New York.
Of course not.
It's a travesty. And similarly, the early case involving Engelberg, whatever his name was, the judges should have thrown this out, but they don't because they're on the same side as the prosecutors.
Yeah, and it's a heavily Democratic state, and all the judges, or most of them at least, are appointed by Democrats.
This is quite new. There have been Democratic states and Democrat judges for a long time, but there's never been a situation where they completely abandon the letter of the law and just allow these leftist bureaucrats, these commissars, to come after people like this. This is completely new. They're completely overstrained by law. I think what's going to have to happen is the whole judiciary is going to have to be cleaned up. I mean, when and if the Republicans get control of the legislative branch, they're just going to have to impeach judges wholesale, like all these people in DC who've lynched these J6 demonstrators. You know, it's the greatest atrocity in American history what's been done to them. All the judges are going to have to be impeached and removed and convicted and jailed.
Well, there really is no other answer, a reasonable answer. And like you said, yeah, there's always been Democrat judges and stuff, but the way it's turned the last few years since Trump left office, it's basically just, forget the law, shut it down by any means necessary, and it's just mind-boggling to me that you could spend $800,000 on a case that hasn't even been brought.
No, that's right. We've not been charged with anything.
Right, like, how's it even like? I don't understand. It's the process is the punishment, as I read in one of your articles, which is often true with these legal matters, right? Dragging you to court, and you got to spend on lawyers. But this is an astronomical sum for anybody, even really rich people. $800,000 on lawyers, and this is a charity organization. And the clear goal seems to be to just stamp it out. And she talked about it in some of her campaign promises to combat hate speech, quote unquote, which is not a real term, by the way. There is no such thing as hate speech. But to combat hate speech online. Do you think she had her eyes on VDare for a while?
Yeah, I mean, Letitia James campaigned on coming after Donald Trump and coming after the NRA, the National Rifle Association, which was also unfortunately registered in New York. And of course, she did them enormous damage with this. They, I believe, have spent over $70 million trying to defend themselves. And Trump, of course, God knows how much he's had to spend, and he may very well finish up in jail over all this. And why she's coming after VDare, which is a tiny organization, is a really odd thing. I mean, I think one of the curious things about Letitia James is she's very interested in real estate. She's developed quite a real estate empire of her own, and she seized control, for example, of the Irish Historical Society, and which has a big townhouse on Fifth Avenue. And she apparently seized control of that and is using it for Democrat events. I mean, she's basically just an absolute rogue regulator. I mean, rogue prosecutor. And she should be disbarred for what she. Maybe now, Kate, for example, she simply lied to the courts about what she done, or what we've done. Our approach of this castle, and was, and it's not unusual for a 501c3 to own headquarters in the conference venue. Sure. The Heritage Foundation does it. The Southern Poverty Law Center does it. Well, but it was very carefully lawyered. Every step of the way was very carefully lawyered. And she simply refused to meet with our lawyers. Because if she did meet with the lawyers, they were very clear there's no further cause for demanding all these very extensive subpoenas. But she won't do it because she wants to demand them. She's demanding our emails all the way back to 2016. What does that have to do with the castle transaction? I mean, it's like being attacked by a vampire squid.
So you think she really wants the castle?
Oh yeah, I think she does want the castle. Yeah, I think she thinks she's going to get control of the castle. Now, our lawyers say she won't because the castle is held by is a separate 501c3, separate charity based in West Virginia. But maybe she thinks she has some way of extorting it out of us.
Well, it's just insane, and excuse me for insulting the intelligence of the Attorney General there. She doesn't seem like the brightest bulb in the box. It seems like somebody might have put this in her ear. You know what I mean? Like, here's this target that we can go after, VDare, bleed them dry. She doesn't seem like the type that would really know about VDare in the first place. Does that sound right to you, or?
Yes, I mean, I think there's obviously a coterie of bureaucrats in there, left-wing bureaucrats in there, who are highly motivated, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if there was coordination with the White House here, because they are, they've taken the Biden administration has taken an enormous risk with what it's doing, bringing in these millions and millions of illegal aliens, and they're desperate to keep it out of politics, out of public debate. They're able to do it to a considerable extent because the regime media collaborates and doesn't report what's going on. But we do report what's going on, and I think there's a systematic effort to suppress any kind of commentary or new on this subject, just as there was before the 2020 election. I mean, as it turned out, remember the famous Time magazine article by that woman Molly Ball or whatever her name was.
Yes,
said that they collaborated with the what she called the cabal that was trying to defeat Trump, and reached out to and collaborated with all the social media networks to try and get them to suppress what they call misinformation, which is news that they don't like. And that's when we were cut off from YouTube and from Facebook and so on. There was obviously they were clearing the decks for the election and just suppressed all dissent, and I think they're going through a similar situation now.
Now, what are the day-to-day operations at VDare in terms of continuing on with publication, etc.? I know you had your conference; it was successful and everything, but
we just had a great conference, and we've cut back on posting a lot. We're basically just in a sort of how should I put it? Suspend animation at the moment. We do still post, but we're just holding on. We're spending most of our time meeting with trying to fight off these legal attacks. And I don't know how much longer this will go on for. It's entirely possible we'll have to close the website. That would just simply be beaten to death.
And just hold conferences instead.
That's right. The conference is a separate issue. We believe we will be able to hold conferences, and we'll host all distant right groups, and not just those, but other distant right groups which are not able to get venues, which is an absolute chronic problem in America right now. It's not a free society. What's going on is a communist coup and just suppressing all opposition. Well, as long as we can, we will host people here, so that they can get their own points of view heard.
Now, is there any hope of defeating it? You would think somewhere along the line, some appeals court or somebody would stop this. But I guess since there's no official charge and she's just issuing subpoenas, that she's just bleeding you dry that way, and they can't stop her from issuing subpoenas.
If we had the money, we would appeal it all the way up to the top New York State appeals court.
She
And then we would, if they won't help us, if they won't recognize the First Amendment issue that's involved here, that she has no grounds for these assaults. She's just beating us to death because she doesn't like what we say. We would then go to the U.S. Supreme Court, but that would cost some hundreds of thousands of dollars, which right now we just don't have.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, the appeals court, state appeals court in New York is like their Supreme Court. Basically, they just call it the Court of Appeals or whatever, Final Court of Appeal. But that's their Supreme Court.
I'm familiar with this situation. It's bizarre nomenclature in New York.
Yeah, there's a lot of bizarre things about New York. Now that I think about it. Of course, VDare has been very important for years and years and years, and I've always enjoyed talking to you on the show. And you have a background, and we did a show on this years ago in legacy media, I guess you might say. You used to be on Meet the Press and Charlie Rose, and your book Alien Nation. I saw you. There's a clip on. There's a clip on YouTube of you being interviewed by C-SPAN 3, which interviews like authors and stuff like that of new books. And so you weren't like considered some extremist guy. You were like a pundit, right? You know what I mean? Like you were on all these shows.
Yeah, it's like Marlon Brando says on the waterfront. I used to be a contender. Yeah, so when Alien Nation came out, we kicked off with an interview with Brian Gumble, if you remember him, on NBC's Today Show, which is still on YouTube. But you know, the fact is that the regime, the ruling class, really does not want the immigration issue to be discussed, and everybody who gets involved in it is very severely damaged. Of course, I never expected that Buckley would betray us at National Review, and that was something I never counted on. But you know, we did recover from it, and we got Be There going, and you know, it's achieved substantial audiences over the years. And I guess that's what's attracted Letitia James' attention. The fact is, this is not a free society. What's going on here is a communist coup. I mean, the left is suppressing all opposition. And I mean, the fact that they have a former president in the court here, and they've apparently threatened to jail him and everything because he's ahead in the polls. And this is like a third world society. And that's because it is a third world society now. I mean, you know, you can't have an Anglo-American, an Anglo-Saxon judicial system work without Anglo-Saxons. The underlying assumptions of the culture is just not there anymore. And this is a very serious problem, and I don't see any easy way out of it.
Yeah, I don't either. You know, they hit Trump, I think it's 37 felony counts or something in New York over what amounts to paying hush money to some, you know, porn star or whatever, which happens all the time, right? And so well, not for me, but you know, these things happen, right? And so they're saying he didn't file it properly under his expenses list or whatever, and so they hit him with 37 felony counts, and they're daily now threatening to throw him in jail for contempt for speaking out. There's a gag order where he can only criticize the judge and the prosecutor and none of the witnesses, and there's some other restrictions.
They're allowed to criticize him. I mean, the whole thing is completely absurd. I mean, it's a disgrace to New York State, what they're doing here.
Yeah, and I just don't know what the answer. First off, do you think Trump will make it to the election? I guess that's a separate topic, and we'll go back to VDare too. But do you think he's even going to be able to make it to the election?
You know, I think that he stands an excellent chance of being assassinated. I think that the people, the ruling class in the States, is utter hysteria about it. Quite unjustified, actually, because he's not that much of a threat to them. He's fundamentally a moderate Republican, as you see from his stance on abortion and so on. But for some reason, they've got themselves in a real snit about it. And you know, the rhetoric that you see out there is really inviting somebody to take a shot at him at some point.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. And we've talked about something like that happening on this show, or some type of big, I don't know if you want to say false flag, or some type of big bada boom happening before the election, because it doesn't look very good for Biden right now. But, I mean, they can't honestly throw him in jail before the election, the leading candidate against the incumbent president, can they? I mean, it's literally banana republic type shit. They don't even do that in Mexico. I live in Mexico now. They don't even do that here. So
the Mexicans have, by the way, much better rules on voting than the Americans do. It's very hard to vote illegally in Mexico.
Yes,
but it's very easy in the US. I mean, the mail-in ballots are open invitations to fraud. Mexicans don't allow that. So that's kind of a paradox, really. The Mexicans are more in line than the US is. Yes, I think they can throw them in jail. I think they're capable of anything, these people. They live in their own bubble, their own world. And I think one of the reasons why you see this extraordinary attack on the January 6th demonstrators, who really did nothing other than what the Kavanaugh, you know, when Justice Kavanaugh was nominated, there was an incursion, the Capitol was invaded. Nobody was thrown in jail for that. There were a few minor misdemeanor offences, but they made no effort to prosecute anybody. On this occasion, when the J6s went into the Capitol, and you know, it's obvious that the Capitol, police were letting them in.
Sure.
They were used to this. Then the police attacked them. That's what happened. You know, in fact, 4 Trump supporters died over it. In various ways, one shot and others, you know, trampled to death and so on. I mean, yes, they can do anything. I mean, the reason why they're prosecuting these people such extraordinary innocent, still breaking down people's doors and arresting them more than 3 years later is because they're extremely frightened about popular reaction to what they're going to do to Trump. They're extremely frightened. They want to make sure they got that crushed before they actually jail Trump and prevent him from running in the election. This is a third world country now, run by third world people, and the historic American nation is really being dispossessed.
Yeah, and they're even reaching back to Charlottesville. We talked to Augustus Invictus a few weeks ago, and there's an ordinance or a law, whatever you want to call it, in Virginia against. Basically, it was made to prevent cross burning, right? And so they were walking around with the tiki torches, and they're trying to call those I forget the exact words of the law, but they're trying to call those a burning object with the intent to intimidate. Which, if you don't know, you do know, I'm sure. A tiki torch is not actually burning. That's a wick that's coming out of the end. Like, you know what I mean? There's a flame there, but it's not actually on fire. So it really doesn't even meet the statute.
Torchlight parades are, a feat for American politics. There was actually one held in Hyde Park in New York, Roosevelt's old home, just a couple of years earlier to commemorate one or other of Roosevelt's, anniversary, one or other of Roosevelt's elections. Torchlight parades are perfectly normal. Nobody had any idea that were illegal until this thing was invoked, and it was invoked like 6-7 years later. It's normally there would have been a statute of limitation on it, but there's a kink in the law where they can apparently prosecute this thing. As I say, this is a communist coup, and they're just using it. They're just rewriting the law to benefit themselves. It's what happened in Eastern Europe. In Eastern Europe after 1945. The Russians were the army, the Red Army, was in control of Eastern Europe, but they didn't get control of it politically. It was still the forms of democracy and the rule of law and so on. It took them several years to get control of it politically, basically between 1945 and 1950. And they did it by this kind of thing, getting control of the judicial system and prosecuting, jailing their oppositions and banning the parties and generally suppressing opposition. And that's what's going on here. And it's been done by the same people. I mean, basically by, leftist ideologues, whom we have a great outbreak in the US. I mean, it's part of the whole demographic transfer of the abolition of the old WASP ruling class and its replacement with the Eastern European ruling class.
Well, and when I was coming up, I was a bit of a leftist, and one of the things that turned me away, among many, feminist takeover would be one, but was immigration. And Patrick Buchanan, actually, listening to Pat Buchanan. You listen to Pat Buchanan enough, you'll wake up if you have any type of brain cells left in your head. And so I'll give those great credit, but it was really immigration. Because when I was coming up, I'm from the South, and my family, yellow dog Democrat, right? FDR and LBJ, and those were their heroes, etc. But the way the left completely turned their back on allowing unfettered immigration into the country is one of the main things that turned me against the left. But it's actually not just the left. There's an unholy alliance between the left because they want more voters and big business on the right, and just big business in general because they want cheap labor and to drive down the labor cost of the Americans who are already here. So it's actually an unholy alliance between them both.
That's exactly right. But if you look at the last great wave of immigration, that was basically between 1880 and 1920. The resistance to it was very largely led by the labor unions and by Sam Gompers, who was actually himself an immigrant, a Jewish immigrant from England. They led the opposition because they could see it was breaking down the wages and the living standards of the working class. Now, the curious thing here is, in this great wave here, triggered by the 1965 Act and associated illegal immigration, and has gone on now for more than 40 years, is that the labour unions are on the other side. And I think the reason for that is that these labour unions are not actually labour unions anymore. The leftist organisations that are staffed by leftist bureaucrats, and they reach onto and attempt to lead their membership, but they're not drawn from the membership anymore. There's an elite group of leftist bureaucrats that Kurt Scott in there, and of course there are also the public service unions, the teachers and so on,
sure,
who see the immigrants as a source of fodder. Basically, there's more excuses for expenditure on teaching if you have to have bilingual teachers and all this kind of thing. So that's a big difference, but I think the real problem is that the Democrat Party has been taken over by a species of leftist ideologue, and they're not working class people at all anymore. They're actually upper class people who've been educated at elite universities. And if you look at this where we live now, Ethan, West Virginia. West Virginia is a very poor state. Yeah. It's also an overwhelmingly white state. It's more than 90% white. Well, it was a rock-hard Democrat state until well within living memory. I mean, Reagan, probably not within your memory, but within my memory, Carter defeated Reagan here in 1980. But now it's a rock-hard Republican state. And the county that we live in, Morgan County, Trump carried by 52 points. And that's not because the Republican Party in West Virginia has done anything very good, except that it's not a Democrat Party. And these people here just look at the Democratic Party and they think it's controlled by freaks. And so they've just left it. And I actually think that's going to go right across American politics. I think that the American whites, which is to say Americans, are going to shift very dramatically into the Republican Party, soon. Maybe not in this election, although it wouldn't be surprising if it happened. I think Trump could well win by a landslide. But just because the Democrats have completely alienated them.
Now, so you do believe there's a political solution? I have people on the show sometimes who say there is no political solution, right? You can't vote your way out of this. It doesn't matter, and it's going to take a collapse of the government or something else that I won't mention, right? To like get our country back, basically. But do you think there is a political solution?
Well, Ethan, as you know, I'm extremely damned old, and so I've been here a long time. I came to the US in 1970, and the answer is that objectively, if I look at the situation, I think it's extremely bad. I actually think we're in early stages of civil war. I think that's what's going on in New York State.
Soft civil war is what I call it. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. On the other hand, I was here in 1975, and I was involved in the conservative movement in 1975, and when Vietnam fell. How old are you? When were you born?
I'm 38, so 1985 during the Reagan administration. Yes.
But people aren't born. That's incredible. Well, nobody believes this because nobody's heard about the Cold War, because the education system wants to teach us about the Holocaust, not about the Cold War. But we were extremely alarmed in 1975 at the collapse of Vietnam, and nobody any idea that the Soviet Union was as weak as it was. It appeared to be absolutely monolithic. And I remember talking to Bill Rusher, who was then the publisher of National Review in 1975, and he said to me confidentially, all is over. What was happening was Vietnam had fallen, and the Soviets had built a blue water navy, and they're all over the world. They seized Angola and Mozambique and Southern Africa. They're obviously going to take out South Africa. It looked like, they were really moving in for the kill. Russia said, confidentially, all is lost and the red flag will wave over the world. But he said, he persevere, because on the one hand, you never know what's going to happen next. And that's the principle of Clausewitz, by the way, the Prussian military theorist. He always said, there's no point in surrender because the other side may be in as much chaos as you are. It's something that if you read military history, you realize that does happen. And the other thing Russia said was, well, there are theological injunctions against despair. he was a very serious Episcopalian, schismatic Episcopalian. He'd gone to one of the breakaway Episcopalian sects because he didn't like female priests. Anyway, and of course that's true. There are theological injustices against despair. And within 5 years it all turned around. And Reagan was elected, and Reagan went on to win the Cold War. I'm not one of these people who thinks that Reagan didn't do it. He did a lot of things. If it hadn't been for Reagan, I think the Russians would have won the Cold War because the American elite was in complete cowardice and in disarray, and also first shot through with communist fifth columnists. So that's why I say that's my cause for hope. I think miracles do happen quite often in politics. We just don't realize it. Nobody expects a Soviet Union to collapse. Nobody, on the left or the right. Nobody expects a Soviet Union to collapse. On the other hand, we never expect the South Africans, the Afrikaners, to give up either. So it works both ways. But so I guess what we're looking for here, Ethan, is a miracle.
Yeah, because it looks like it's going to take some Deus Ex Machina event or person, right, to come along. I don't know if that's going to be Trump or not, or if he's maybe. I tend to think it's more of Trump has opened the path for maybe somebody down the line to do it, maybe not necessarily him himself. That he's waking up a lot of people. Anyway, go ahead.
One of the peculiar things about Trump is that the people who are most in favor of his policies hate him the most because he can't be relied upon to fuel a consistent course, which is nobody knows what it's going to do. But the fact is that what he's shown, I think what he has demonstrated is the value of courage. Whatever else you can say about him, he's not a coward. He's prepared to fight, and he doesn't. He's just simply not easily broken. I mean, they've not been able to break him. That's very inspirational because the average professional politician is a jellyfish. That's how they get there. They just equilibrate between various forces. Trump doesn't really equilibrate. He when he decides to do something, he does it.
Yeah, and the way they talk about him, of course they can talk about him like he's Hitler or, Stalin or something like that, and he's not. I mean, he was a New York Democrat his whole life until he decided to run for president, really. I mean, that's kind of what he was, right?
One thing about the left is, they project. Yeah. You can tell what they want to do by what they accuse you of doing. And they accuse Trump of wanting to put his enemies in prison. Well, they are putting their enemies in prison, and they want to suppress dissent and persecute journalists, and that's exactly what they are doing. And that's what they'll do more if they get the chance. This is a communist coup, and they mean to completely extirpate all opposition. How is Mexico, by the way?
Mexico's great. Now, there's some parts of Mexico not as great, but I live in the Yucatan Peninsula here in Merida, which is one of the safest cities in North America, actually. Yes. And I don't think many people know that. Now, there are some parts of Mexico that are not as safe, but the Yucatan is almost like its own country.
The Yucatan made a serious effort to remain independent of Mexico.
Yes, they did have a period of independence from Mexico, in the 1800s. And there was even a plan to make them part of the United States as well, way back when, to include the Yucatan in a greater United States. Now, that didn't happen, but obviously. But,
Not yet.
Not yet. It would be a pretty good state, I have to say. It's so beautiful here, and the people are nice. Now, it's Mayan. So another thing a lot of people don't understand is that, they say Mexican, and they just think Mexican catch-all, right? Right? Like it's a catch-all for everybody here is Mexican. Well, yeah and no, right? So this is Mayan territory. 85% of the people who live here are descendant from the actual Mayans who used to have their own empire. And they have all these ruins around here. And there's different cultures within Mexico, different races within Mexico. And there's not just one. Now, people don't really. I didn't really realize that until I moved here. But yeah, it's a different culture here. Like I never see any violence here. The people are so nice. It's just different here in the Yucatan.
My first wife died. We were in Cozumel, and she made the observation that as a woman, she didn't feel at all threatened when she walked through the crowds of young men and so on. They were just very respectful, and there was never any problem. Now that's not the experience that my current wife had when she was in Chicago with Hispanics in Chicago. They were very aggressive, but they're a different type of Mexican.
Yes. Yeah, they're different type. It's like I said, it's like its own country, and at one point it was its own country, and it's just a different type. I haven't been to Cozumel, but I've been to Cancun several times, and Isla Mujeres is a little island there next to Cancun, but I haven't gotten to Cozumel just yet. But I do plan to get there. But yeah, it's just a different. Way of living here in the Yucatan. And I did my research. At first I was going to move to Cancun or maybe Playa del Carmen or something like that. But the more research I did, actually somebody I used to know that I won't mention right now for legal reasons had suggested Merida. And I was like, I never even heard of Merida at that point, honestly, and I should have. That was my fault. But I did a little research, and Merida's won awards for being the safest big city in North America, like 2 or 3 times in the past 5 years. Like it's perennially like one of the safest places, and somebody gets shot or gets killed here, and it's like front page news. It's not like Guerrero State or Sinaloa or anything like that. And some people don't believe me when I tell them how safe it is here in Merida, because they're so used to the narco trafficking stories and all that, which does. There's kind of a bit of a soft civil war here in Mexico too, but the government kind of just ceded certain areas over to the cartels instead of fighting them directly, because they would most likely not be able to defeat them because they're very well armed and very well trained, and it would cause a full-blown civil war to take them out. But honestly,
one of the things that's going to happen, I'm talking about miracles happening, is that I think that national boundaries are going to be redrawn right across North America. I think that the Canadian situation is very unstable, and
yes.
Western Canada is obviously very oppressed in Confederation, and similarly, I wonder if Mexico's. Mexico is not stable. It's obviously a narco state. How long can this go on for? I mean, maybe my son, who was a U.S. Marine, should not have been sent to Afghanistan. Maybe he should have been sent to Mexico to sort the Mexican situation out.
Well, I mean, it's much more important to the United States. It's our neighbor. It's our number one trading partner, them and China. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously it can't last forever. It is a narco state in a lot of ways. Now, the Yucatan's not. Campeche, the province, or the state, they call them states here, is technically the United States of Mexico. Campeche is really safe. Quintana Roo, where Cancun is a little bit less safe because there's certain business interests there that kind of fight every once in a while, etc. But the Yucatan, I could easily see. I've told many Mexicans, it's like its own country. It's just totally different here. It's totally chill. I tell people I can walk out at night at 1:30, 2 a.m. if I had to go to the store. I don't feel in danger in any way whatsoever. I couldn't say that when I lived in Memphis, Tennessee, or Richmond, Virginia. I could never say that. I would be afraid for my life to walk down the street at 1:30 a.m. It would have to be...
We're okay here in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, Ethan.
Yeah, I'll be fine there, I think, yeah.
It's a completely wise society, and it is safe.
Yeah, it's West Virginia is beautiful, and yeah, I would feel safe there. I just happen to live in what they call majority districts in some certain parts of my life, right? And those are not Anglo-Saxon, as you mentioned, earlier in the conversation, and a lot of gun crime and stuff like that. But there's really almost none of that here in Merida. Now, other parts, yes. I don't know how long the situation can last in Mexico, because sooner or later they're going to have to do something. But anyway, the Yucatan's thriving itself. So, yeah, I do enjoy my time here. Went a little bit different than I expected in terms of, me being here by myself now. But those types of things happen, as you know, in life. So, but yeah, I'm loving it here. I'm just curious your thoughts on just immigration in general. It doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. The bill they tried to pass was bullshit, basically. Is there ever going to be enough political will or power to stop the invasion? And people think it's all Mexicans. It's not really. Actually, Mexico is a place that a lot of people from Guatemala and Honduras and El Salvador, they want to be in Mexico. That's like their second best option, is to be here, right? Because it's way more stable than some of their own countries. But is there ever going to be enough power to stop this?
I think it's important to realize that, Trump did not pass any legislation on immigration.
No.
Between 2016 and 2020, and that was very, very bad. On the other hand, through executive action, he really slowed it down very dramatically. In fact, even before COVID, the immigrant workforce in the US was actually reducing. People were actually leaving at a fairly high clip, and that had an immediate effect on wages. Wages, for particularly in the lower income regions, started to increase. Real wages started to increase because of reduced competition, labor force competition. So he was able to do a lot. And had he been re-elected, I think a lot more would have been done, and it would also been nailed down by legislation. One of the good things that's happened in the last few years is Trump does seem to have, by one means or another, deliberately or accidentally, driven out a lot of the no-goodniks out of the Republican Party, and people like all the Bush infestation and so on seem to have left. So there are a lot of people now in the party. The party is a party of immigration patriotism, and it would move to more restriction if it could. There's still the elite in the party is still no good. But they're afraid of Trump, so I do see possibilities for a real serious change. It irritates me that nobody is explicitly calling for an immigration moratorium, that is to say, no net immigration, because that's what we actually need in the US. 50 years to counteract the effect of this great surge, accidental surge of immigration that was unleashed by the 1965 Act. But Trump did actually at one point enact an immigration moratorium as part of the COVID restrictions.
Yes.
He could have sustained it, but there were factions in the administration. He had a lot of no good, a lot of useless rhinos in the administration, and they didn't sustain it. But it could happen again, and so as I say, miracles happen. I'm not ruling the miracle out.
Well, and he
one of the great things. One of the great things.
Go ahead.
Is we monitor the immigrant workforce population very closely from the monthly data from the Labor Department. In Trump's case, as soon as he got in, as soon as he elected, before he was inaugurated, the immigrant workforce population started to fall because they were frightened. They just got up and left. And just re-electing Trump would, I think, would have a dramatic effect immediately.
I agree with that totally. Also say, hopefully he's learned his lesson about people like Reince Priebus and Paul Ryan and some of these other guys who were in his ear who had him push Obamacare repeal and tax cuts. And he was elected to stop immigration and build the wall. That's why he was elected. And so kind of squandered those first 2 years when if he had really hammered home and gotten those bills through, I think he would have easily won re-election, even with the ballot stuffing that we saw. Do you think there's going to be a fair election this fall?
No, I don't. But I think the numbers. Trump has never been ahead in the polls he's never been ahead in the polls at all. But his lead in the averages right now has been sustained for a very long time. And that suggests to me that it may be actually much greater than he is. So he may win by enough that they're not able to cheat enough to stave it off. And I also think the Republican operatives were just completely taken by surprise by what was done to them. They shouldn't have been, but they were. So I think they're much more alert to what might happen now.
Well, they thought they were going to put DeSantis in there, and they had a couple phony baloney polls that showed him up, and then DeSantis took his shot, and it was a really bad shot. And then all these indictments started coming in on Trump. Well, that just boosted his popularity. It's like they're trying to throw this man in jail, and it just boosted him further and further and further up the polls with each indictment. Now, if they actually put him in jail, that might be different. But they didn't count on this. They didn't. Honestly, I didn't count on it either. If you would have asked me if Trump could have secured the Republican nomination the day after Biden's inauguration, once again, I would have said no, because I just could not see a possible path to that happening. So for him to have even done this and gotten this far is honestly, it may be even more impressive than what he did in 2015 and 2016, honestly. Just as impressive, at least, because like you said, the party apparatchiks and operatives definitely did not see this coming whatsoever, and he kind of just took them by storm. Again, you would think they would have learned, but they didn't, and you would think I would have learned too, but I guess I didn't either. And so for him to pull this off, win, lose, or draw in the general election is still one of the greatest achievements, I think, in modern politics, really, for him to get this nomination.
Miracles happen quite often in politics. I had no idea if he was going to do this either, but he has sustained strength in the U.S. You go around here in West Virginia, Ethan, you look at these trailer homes and everything that there are here in the hollows, and they're all flying Trump flags. They never stopped flying Trump flags. They flew them all the time. So he's really touched a nerve with the white working class. And that turns out to be a very difficult thing for them to get around.
Yeah, and they never stopped supporting him. And yeah, he did strike that nerve. And it still is a majority white country. So for now, and so I disagree with him on a few policies here or there, but honestly, I think it's about our only hope. But what do you see happening if he does get in, though? Is that going to exacerbate? I could see, we saw the meltdowns in 2016. Will we see violence in the streets? Will we see, we talked about Civil War type things. We've seen constitutional norms shredded where they've tried to take him off ballots and stuff like that, which is just unprecedented, right? Take him off state ballots. These are signs of a decaying republic, right? These are when constitutional norms start being violated and thrown by the wayside. That's how the Roman Republic turned into the Roman Empire, right? These are how republics fall. And so, what do you see happening if he were to pull it out?
Yeah, I absolutely do think there could be a serious violence. I mean, there was serious violence when they went in 2016, Antifa, we didn't call Antifa in those days, but they did expect to close out his inauguration. And in the end, hundreds of them were. I was there, at the inauguration day. People said, "Well, Trump doesn't have big crowds in his the viewing stands, the bleachers to watch the parade." But he couldn't get into them because the security was so intense, because of these riots that were going on. And in the end, several hundred were arrested and charged with felony rioting. And this actually was a decisive moment for the Trump presidency, because the charges were derailed by a federal judge who didn't want any, was a leftist federal judge who didn't want these people prosecuted. And if it had been prosecuted, I think it would have had a chilling effect on Antifa, exactly like a chilling effect that Merrick Garland is trying to impose on Trump supporters with these J6 lynchings. So yes, there is fair balance, and I think Antifa, the communist paramilitaries, are very well organized, and all I can say is I think that law enforcement, if it thought it had support from the political class or from the president, they would have been much better at suppressing them than they were in, for example, 2020. No, quite clearly, Trump should have invoked the Insurrection Act and closed down Minneapolis and crushed it with force. But there was some kind of nervous crisis going on within the administration, partly because so many of the people in the administration were basically rhinos and actually believe what they read in the New York Times. I don't think that's the case now. I think there'll be a different group of people moving in who've been somewhat hardened by this experience over the last 5 or 6 years.
Well, he clearly dropped the ball on that one. I don't blame him totally, but you notice how they were saying kill Whitey and all this and that, and they didn't crack down on that for however long till they burned down half the country. But you notice what's happening on college campuses, though. If you speak out against Israel or what's going on in Palestine and Gaza, boy, they cracked down on that really quickly, didn't they?
Right. I mean, the contrast is absolutely extraordinary. I mean, it turns out that they can expel people and arrest people and so on. But it's just that they didn't want to do it. And they do it now because the Jewish donors want them to do it. Maybe they learned the lesson.
I'm hoping so, and I'm hoping he brings the right people in. I've read some articles about his game plan. If he does get in, and it sounds pretty good to me, if he sticks to it. Trump's an interesting guy because Trump, he really wants to be loved, right? Even by the media, even by the elite, and so I think he craves that a little bit too much sometimes. But I don't know. This last year or so, it seems like a different Trump almost, right? Like he's on a mission, and he knows if he doesn't win, he's going to lose it all. They're going to take everything. And I said this in 2020 that they were going to do this exact same thing. If he doesn't win re-election, they're coming for the properties. They're coming for the Trump organization. They're coming for his family's money, and that's exactly what they did. Of course, you didn't have to be Nostradamus to figure this out, right? Because it's not just because of Trump either. It's because of who may come after Trump to dissuade somebody else from trying to do what he did, right? And hey, look, you don't want to end up like this guy. And so, I mean, basically his only chances of saving his empire and his assets is winning re-election and not going to jail, is winning the presidency.
That's right, and of course, having won the presidency, unlike 2016, he actually got to follow through, and he should, of course, have prosecuted Hillary, insist on Hillary. And what he said was, "Oh, she's suffered enough." He was too nice, is what it comes down to.
He was too nice because they're doing to him exactly what he said he was going to do, but didn't actually do. It was just rhetoric, right? He was just talking trash. And she suffered enough. He literally should have put her in jail. Yeah, that's exactly what he should have done, and seized the upper hand, because that's exactly what they're trying to do to him. And I don't know if they'll succeed or not. I have a hard time believing they can actually throw him in jail during the middle of a campaign where he's leading the campaign. I mean, that's just. well, it's un-American. I don't know what else to say. It's undemocratic. It's un-American. It's unethical. Un-everything. I have a hard time believing they can do that. But stranger things have happened. I guess if they think they can't stop him any other way, maybe they actually will try that. But I would see violence. I think violence in the streets if they do something like that.
Well, of course, that's, as I say, that's why they've been so assiduous in prosecuting as many of the J6s as they can, because they really want to cow people from the kind of really remarkable popular demonstrations that we saw at the end of 2020, when people realised the election had been stolen, and they really fried the ruling class, and they're doing their best to crush it. But it takes time. What's going to happen is next time these people will not be unarmed. The J6 were completely unarmed. The idea that they were staging insurrection without weapons is obviously absurd. But next time they'll bring the weapons.
Well, yeah, I agree. And Margie Taylor Greene, that was her one comment. And she said that was the only mistake with January 6th.
Right, well.
I have to disavow, but it made me laugh.
It's done them no good at all. The fact that they obeyed the DC's, firearms restrictions, so it did them no good at all. They got no credit for it. So the question is, what happens next?
Well, I think we're in for a big year, and I don't know which way it's going to go. Nobody does, but which way is it going to go for VDare? I'm not going to keep you all night. I just plan on talking to you for about an hour or so.
I have to go back to work. What's going to happen to VDare is we're going to keep running the site as long as we can, and that part depends on legal issues, legal decisions, and so on. And it may be that we'll ultimately have to go dark. I mean, we may even have to liquidate the foundation. And then Liddy and I will have to decide what we're going to do next.
Jake Houston sent $1 on Rumble.
Hey guys, right now we're going to keep the site running as long as we can. Partly because we continue to hope for a legal miracle. I mean, our case is so sound that it's extraordinary to us, to our lawyers, that we've got no relief from the courts up to now. And maybe we'll be able to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. Maybe we'll have to do that. The thing is, we really don't want to give her the names of our pseudonymous writers and our donors because we know she'll leak them. So that's what the issue here is. We're, at the moment, we're spending an enormous amount of time redacting email to try and keep these names out of her filthy paws. We're gonna hang in here as long as we can, and maybe we'll get lucky, or maybe we'll just have to regroup in some way. But we are going to have the castle, and we are going to continue to hold conferences here, even if the website itself has to go dark.
Also, I listed the giftsandgo.com/VDare if people wanted to help support the legal battle. Are there any other ways people could support?
Yeah, I mean, one of the nasty things that's happened recently, and I think it is because of this purge against immigration, any kind of immigration patriotism, that we've lost our credit card processes. But if you go to VDare/donate or just to VDare.com and follow the links to donate, you can still give e-checks. We've got that figured out, so people can still give e-checks to us, and they are doing, and we really appreciate it, and it will enable us to keep going as long as possible.
Now, before I let you go, this is a little bit of a Larry King question, maybe, but name 3 of your biggest political influences throughout your career.
You mean influence on me?
Yeah.
Or influence that I've had?
No, well, either or both.
For me, is what you said earlier. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Pat Buchanan.
Me too.
And until he retired, we ran his column, and he mentioned us favorably in several of his books. And I think if we'd been able to elect Pat Buchanan in 1992, as opposed to George Bush, the country would be in fantastically better shape. In terms of going even further back into the mists of the past, when I grew up in England, I was immensely influenced by the politician Enoch Powell. A great speech in Britain in 1968, basically saying that immigration should be stopped. And that's had an electrifying effect on me, and you know, it's actually shaped the way my thinking on this immigration subject, you know, ever since, and that's got a long time now.
Yeah, and that is a very famous speech, by the way, which we've played on the show a couple times. Well, I want to thank you for joining us, and I'm wishing you the best with VDare, and I wanted to help get the word out as much as I could, and I wasn't sure how many people actually know what's going on with them trying to take you guys out, and so I just wanted to get the word out and talk to you a little bit.
As Kevin Diana said, you know, I've been in the conservative movement here for a very, very long time. It's part of my accent. I worked for John Ashbrook. That's Ashbrook, not Ashcroft, against Richard Nixon in 1972. And of course, I am bitter, frankly, that so many of the people I've known for so long in the conservative movement, the Wall Street Journal, National Review, and so on, haven't helped us here. They've just been studiously silent throughout this. So I really appreciate you allowing us to get the word out. And stay in touch. And I'd love to come on again. We'll let you know what we'll do next.
Definitely.
Have to close this out.
Definitely. Have a good night. We'll close it out, and we'll definitely talk again. You're one of my favorite guests, most learned guests, and I appreciate your time tonight, Mr. Brimlow. Thank you.
Thanks, Ethan. Keep in touch.
All right.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Mr. Brimlow live on the Kill Stream.
Well, let me tell you. If I were Rabbi Shmuley and diddle 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 digga digga diddle diddle dum, all day long I'd diddle little bums. If I were a Shmuley man, I'd peddle all my dildos, dreidel dildos, selling dildos with my daughter and her mum. If I were a Jewish Shmuley man, I'd be digging with a dildo in my bum. I'd wear a grotesque nose and go grab some goyim right on the nipple with a pinch. A Shabbos lap dance brace for the youngest mensch.
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy and the rest of MSNBC. And click on any of the videos right here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. And you can get more videos from MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit